Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Steve with Real Progressives. You know, one of the most important things that we all should have learned by now is that most people don't do anything they don't have to do until they're absolutely desperate. And what is most frightening, as we've watched during this election cycle, is that most Americans are just comfortable enough to stay stuck. They're just comfortable enough to do nothing. They're just comfortable enough to stay with the status quo out of fear of change. So what has happened over the course of time? You know, you have a great conversation in the beginning of a primary. Beginning of the primary, everybody's minds are open. They're talking about what if. They're thinking about things. But then as you start coming closer to the election, all of a sudden fear kicks in. And this is not about Donald Trump. This is every single election cycle. And quite frankly, this is in every one of our lives. So, a couple confessions. First of all, my name's Steve Grumbine. I'm an alcoholic. September 15th, the day my dad passed, was my 10-year anniversary. And my support system often told me that I had a lot of contempt prior to investigation. You know, I wouldn't even bother. I was so set in my ways. I was so sure I was right. I was not willing to hear anything new. I was a full cup. Any information, the cup was already full. You couldn't give me any more information. I literally knew it all. And so people would tell me, it's going to be really tough to get sober, Mr. Man, if you're not going to try something different. If you think you got it going on, it's going to be really hard for you to get well. And, you know, I was a big guy. I could change people's lives with one swing. I didn't have to be mousy. I could take a different tact. And as a good drunk, I often did. But as you try to get well, you realize that you're learning to walk with a broken leg. So you start compensating for a broken leg. When you're a drunk, you learn that violence keeps people honest, keeps them out of your, field of vision. They don't want to mess with you. So you learn this broken way of thinking that pushes people away as a means of self-protection. But once again, that's broken, and that's not the way to do it. So you got to do something different. And it takes a drunk to hit rock bottom for them to change their ways. Well, it seems like it takes an American citizen to hit rock bottom for them to change their ways. So as we're sitting there looking at the climate, we're watching severe weather patterns happen. We're watching parts of our country start getting submerged underwater. We're watching entire communities uninhabitable. We're watching drought happen. It's going around the world. It's not conspiracy. It's just the way it is, right? You can watch National Geographic and get enough of your own, mainstream media climate change to see what I'm talking about. And yet we still aren't desperate because it hasn't hit us yet. We haven't had enough extinction to make it real for us. So we stay complacent. And maybe we're making just enough money to get by. So poverty isn't quite as important to us as it would be if we lost our jobs. As if our house were upside down and we were going to lose our homes. As if we had everything going our way today. So it's hard for us to be empathetic. It's hard for us to consider what a life without having the things that we've grown used to is like. So it's very hard for us to take steps when it doesn't directly impact us at that moment. So one of the things that I find about being a progressive is that we oftentimes take up battles that don't quote unquote directly impact us. For those who are struggling, for those who are in desperation, who are in need. So why is it that so much of our country is so willing to go along in complete and utter mediocrity and allow others to struggle mightily and still stay with the status quo and worry about something completely irrelevant because it's easier for them to stay stuck? It's easier for them to stay in this holding pattern because it's just not gotten bad enough for them to take action. Now, I am terrible, ironically, at mathematics. How funny is that? I used to be a systems engineer. I love economics. I have an MBA. I have a Master of Science, and I suck at math. And I had a major mental block trying to do basic algebraic equations. I couldn't do calculus. I couldn't do, pre-calc even. Some of the algebra equations were really, really difficult for me to get my arms wrapped around. The only class I did phenomenally well in, ironically, wasn't economics. It was statistics. So I went through all these economic classes, and I couldn't take the theory that they would put forth in class. I couldn't take that theory and make it useful in my life. It didn't make sense to me. I mean, I understood it. I could take a test, whatever, but I didn't see how it was pertinent to me. And so in 2009, I lost a 17-year career that I'd worked my ass off for at Verizon. And it changed my life. I had to hit rock bottom. At that point in time, I was a conservative. I had no real empathy for the struggling. I didn't have any real empathy for a lot of things. And I got my baptism by fire by almost losing my home, by losing a career, by losing a family. I lost almost everything that mattered. I lost my entire life savings in the crash. I also got pinched in 2002 for a misdemeanor pot charge. And, it ended up costing me a lot of job opportunities. So all of a sudden, I went from having it all to having nothing. And then I couldn't get a job because I had a smear on my record. Right? I had a DWI. I was a disaster. Why am I telling you all this? First of all, it's my story. I'm comfortable telling it. But why am I telling you this? Because it took a lot for me to understand how important it was to investigate things. Some of the stuff that I learned in my recovery process was half measures avail us nothing. We stood at the turning point. And for me, when it came to learning about how to fix this thing, that dawned on me, it's like, holy shit, dude, you have got all this education and you're still struggling. You worked your ass off, but you fell down. How are the people that don't have it going on ever going to get out of this rut? How is that ever going to happen? So my shift from the right wing started in 2007, 2008, and it went full bore all the way out here to 2016. So you might ask, why am I talking about this now as we're in the middle of an election cycle and we're worrying about Donald Trump and we're worrying about Hillary Clinton and we're trying to get Jill 5% or whatever? Because at the end of the day, if you guys don't understand that things are really desperate right now because you haven't started boiling in the pot, if you haven't started boiling in the pot, by the time you realize it, it will be too late. It will be too late. And part of a healthy person is recognizing that the things are really desperate right now. And you look at it and you think to yourself, hard work isn't going to save everybody. The system's rigged. Bernie pointed that out. You know it in your own life, the system is rigged. You can see it. You're living paycheck to paycheck, most of you. Some of you guys probably have some dollars tucked away, but you're still not living la vida loco. You're still living tight, comparatively. And so you got to ask yourself, what could we do differently? You know that hard work isn't going to do it. You got to be really lucky. You got to win the lottery of life. Maybe you were born to great parents that had some money. I don't know. Maybe you hit the lotto. Maybe you have a really great idea and you get lucky and you start a business that goes crazy. But most likely you're like regular people who are unremarkable in terms of your great ideas. Many of your ideas are never realized, whether it be that you don't know how to bring them to fruition, or whether it be you don't have the training to do it. Who knows? Whatever the case may be, you're not able to take these great ideas in your brain and turn them into actionable cash, to turn them into something that is actually changing your life. And that is what most Americans, most people in the world are stuck with. It's not that you're a bad person. It's not that it's just simply, this is a lottery. It's a crapshoot. You may have the greatest idea ever and miss the timing by 5 minutes. So we know that it's not that. It's a lot of things. It's a lot of factors. So some of the factors that we could change. As citizens of the United States, we have control of our vote, sort of. We have control over our actions, sort of. We have control over what we invest our time in, sort of. Because right now, we're doing a lot of meaningless things because part of our system is to go to a job, push paper from the left side of your desk to the right side of your desk, punch your ticket, get your 8 hours, go home and say, I'm a great guy, I work for my family, I provide for my family. You push the paper left, it went to the right. You hit send on the email, you click like on something, you filled out a form, you sat in a meeting, you did whatever. But the fact is, you didn't cure cancer. You didn't really do anything terribly meaningful. So what is it that is going to create a change for you and I? We're doing all the things. Let's just say we're doing all the things we're supposed to do. We're getting strapped with debt from student loans because we're trying to do the things we're supposed to do. We buy a house because that's what you do. You buy a car because you got to get to the job to push paper from the left to the right because that's what you do. Now you got to pay for insurance because that's what you do. At the end of the day, you're doing all these things because that's what you do. You have to do it. But why? What are you actually solving with that? You're feeding your family because that's what you do. That's the system. That's what you have to do to get a paycheck. But what if there was a different way? What if there was a way of looking at this differently? In academia, the academics all sit amongst each other and talk philosophically about all these grand ideas. They use these formulaic ways of speaking to one another that are above the common man. Back like when the Vatican would hide the Bible from the regular people because you weren't good enough to read it. That's kind of what the economists do at the top end. That's what our politicians do. They all talk above our heads and they just say, now, little people, we know what's best for you. We know what's best for you. And you don't know enough because you haven't been trained enough. You don't have the tools to know whether they're telling you good stuff or bad stuff. So you hear something. And in your mind, it makes you feel comfortable. I heard the other day that the Republicans sell fear and the Democrats sell false security. And whichever way you went in your duopoly-minded thinking, you fell into the fear bucket or you fell into a false sense of security. So the academia play on that and they talk amongst themselves. And you've got to pay a lot of money to learn what they're talking about. And you got to stay up really late at night and drink an awful lot of coffee to read these books that make your eyes dry up like sandpaper and make you sit there and bore yourself to death. And then you have to talk about it with people that don't want to hear you talk about it. So how do you ever get past this milquetoast existence? This existence that never ever feeds on truth because you're too comfortable to learn truth. Comfort breeds apathy. And apathy creates lethargy. And lethargy creates a good slave. So here we are now as a people, most of us doing just well enough to not bitch too much, to not be ready to break out a gun, to not be ready to break out a pitchfork, to not break out the torches, to not storm the walls. You're doing just well enough that scares you, that you'd rather go push paper from the left side of your desk to the right side of your desk. What if there was a better way? What if there was a better way? Would you be able to take it? Or are you too comfortable in your bad existence with your broken leg learning to walk? Are you so entrenched in the way that you do things that no matter how sick it makes you, you're going to continue doing it? You know, there's a saying in AA, some are sicker than others. And they say if nothing changes, nothing changes. And they say the same man will drink again. Do you want to get well? Because right now you're dying of propaganda. You're dying of apathy. You're dying of a case of I got it going on. But you don't have it going on. You're missing out on valuable things in your children's lives. You're missing out on living yourself. You're going to work, you're making do, you're making your mind say, well, this is just what you do. This is what I have to do. I have to buy a car. I have to drive to work. I have to log into my computer. I have to go to a meeting. I have to push paper from left side of my desk to the right side of my desk. I have to then go home. I then feed my kids. Maybe I go home and get some love before I go to bed. And then you go to bed. Maybe you watch some Walking Dead or something like that, or a football game, and you go to bed. I bet you missed every tree on the ride down the road. I bet you didn't see the change of the skyline. I bet you didn't even pay attention to the sounds of the air, of the changing breeze, of the changing leaves. I bet you didn't notice your surroundings because you're so caught in the rut of just doing this that anything I say that would change that, anything I say that would challenge your basic existence, would send your brain out of the world. It would just spin it out of this world. You go out of orbit. So when I talk about economics, and you're so used to marching in place, and you're used to taxes fund spending, and fighting with the GOP, and fighting with the Dems, and fighting back and forth, you don't realize that you are walking with a broken leg, that you're still drinking when you're an alcoholic, that you're going to get into a DWI, that you're going to wreck your car because you don't get that your economic thinking is destroying our planet. It's destroying your children's futures. It's destroying the world. Everything is contingent on a basic understanding of economics. And so because you write a check out to pay the electric bill, and because you write a check out to pay your mortgage payment, and you pay your freaking credit card payments, you have it in your head that that is economics. That is what we call microeconomics. Your household budget is microeconomics. It's not equal the same thing as your government's economics. So asking your government to behave like you behave at home is just like walking around with a broken leg. You say you care about poverty. Prove it. You say you want to end wars. Prove it. You say you care about the environment. Prove it. You say you want education for all. Prove it. You say you want Medicare for all. Prove it. Prove it by caring enough to break from your paradigm and you're marching in place and you're going to the job and you're pushing paper from the left side to the right side. You're going to your meeting. You're doing everything the same way you've always done. You're voting blue. You're doing this. You're looking at the girl over there because she's coming down the thing every day. You're ignoring the trees. You're ignoring the skyline. You're ignoring your kids. You're ignoring your own health. You're ignoring everything because you're in a rut and you can't break free. You're just spinning around on the hamster wheel over and over and over again. And anything that slows that hamster wheel down is just too much for you to grasp. The academics, they're counting on you staying on the hamster wheel because amongst them, it keeps them feeling very, very, very smart. The politicians are counting on you staying on the hamster wheel because if you don't, you'll pay attention to the theft and the corruption and the election fraud. And all of a sudden, you'll start demanding they do their jobs. And you won't only plug into politics when it's an election season. You'll be there on November 9th as well. They're counting on you staying on the hamster wheel, folks. Do you want to continue walking around with a limp? Do you want to continue swimming in a boiling pot of water, unaware that you're about to die? It's time for you to open up your minds. It's time for you to break the pattern. It's time for you to do something different. It's time for you to not live in fear, but to claim the future and claim it now. And take action. Our lives have to matter more to you than your routine. Our planet has to matter more to you than your routine. We all love routines. We all love our shows. We get home on time. Sunday, hey, 1 o'clock is kickoff. 4 o'clock is kickoff. Sunday night football, Monday night football, Thursday night football. I like having eggs in the morning. You know, we all have our things that we like to do, and we do them, and we do them, and we do them. I have stupid jokes I tell over and over again that my wife would love me to stop telling. Oh my God, Steve, will you stop saying it? But I'm a creature of habit. So I keep saying the same stupid shit. And I keep getting the same result. The answer is no, you know that. Anyway, I want you guys to really, really think about what it means to be revolutionary. Being revolutionary means you're doing something different. You're breaking out. You're busting through the dome of the Truman Show. You're doing something different. I offer up some economic theories that they're not theories. So I kind of took you all on the long road here, but it's not going to be an economic discussion, but there's going to be a touch of it. Modern monetary theory is the foundation for most of everything that I believe. But modern monetary theory isn't a theory at all. It's a description. There's no policy prescriptions. They're not telling Republicans believe it. Libertarians can believe it. Heck, Democrats can believe it. Progressives can believe it because it's just a statement of fact. It's how federal financing works from 1971 to present. But even in my MBA class, they taught us everything 1971 and before. So I was walking around with a broken leg. I was peddling the wrong stuff too. I was guilty. I didn't know any better. I told you before, I sat in these economic classes and it just bounced off my head. I didn't know what I was listening to. It didn't make any sense to me. I couldn't put it in context. I was too used to living the way I lived. I was used to breaking out a credit card, and when the credit card hit its max, the lady at the counter would look and say, "Sir, I'm sorry, but your card was rejected." Well, you can't spend what you don't have, right? And so I would be like, oh, man. And I used to run around talking about Bush put the wars on the government credit card. Because that's the model I knew. That's the hamster wheel I was on. I didn't understand what monetary sovereignty was. I was just going with the best broken leg excuse I had, right? Made sense. Once I decided that I wanted to do something different, this wasn't working for me anymore. I understood Keynesian economics. I had understood Austrian economics. I understood medalist versus chartalist. I shouldn't go there. The idea is to keep it simple. But I understood a lot of things. And I felt comfortable. And it wasn't until I was challenged with my own personal life that I realized I had to take a hard look at all the different ways I was compensating to keep this myth alive in my life. The broken leg, I learned to walk with a limp. My eyesight sucked, so I started reading with the book closer to my eyes to compensate. I didn't get glasses, I put the thing up closer. I did everything to compensate rather than to change, to do something different. I would always compensate. Never did the right fix. So, what would you do if you knew that we could change the way things are, if you demanded that things change? In order to demand change, you got to know what you're asking for change for. Just shaking your fists in the air with righteous outrage isn't the same thing as asking for the right change. Because somebody comes up with a really good conspiracy theory that sounds good and it's more fun to say that than actually read a book and do the research, doesn't make it so. It's very important that you want to walk upright, that you want to fix your spine, that you don't let your spine slump anymore by being comfortable. You strengthen your muscles. You pull your shoulders back. You lose weight. You do whatever it is you've got to do so you can be healthy. And that comes with your understanding of the world around you. It comes with understanding that climate change is real. And if climate change is real, that means you can't stay on the hamster wheel. You've got to do something different. That means if you know that Hillary Clinton is a lying warmonger, you can't fall prey and vote for someone that you know will keep you on the hamster wheel and kill your kids in a war. That means that if you know that Donald Trump is a plant, you can't keep feeding the propaganda about this whole thing. You can't sit there and make someone who says funky things be more dangerous than the person who does funky things, right? Not have any kind of real credibility. And you also can't sit there and say that you're against war, yet actually vote for someone who is for war. You can't sit there and talk about the government being financially constrained and broke, and oh my God, the burgeoning debt, when I can tell you flat out that the debt the government has is not debt like you and I know at all. It's just a savings account where people have bought securities. They bought T-bonds, T-bills, to keep themselves a savings account at the Fed, basically to stabilize their own currency. It's not debt like we know it. If they ever cashed out their bonds, they just get US dollars, folks. Don't ever lie again. Don't say that. Learn how to walk straight. Fix your broken leg. Stop drinking one day at a time. The same person will drink again. If nothing changes, nothing changes. If you want better, you gotta do better. You can't live in fear. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself, right? This is a somber, slow motion stream. This is me not up in my high horse. This is me just laying it to you because I want you to think through what I'm saying. If you're not ready to change, they aren't going to change it. They're counting on you staying stuck. We want to change. I'm asking each one of you, as we put stuff forward, take a moment. Don't just scroll past it because it doesn't fit your hamster wheel. I guarantee you, I go to all the pages. I go to all the groups. I'm the only one putting the stuff that we put up. I swear to God, it's no joke. I'm the only one. Not I'm the only one. Our team is the only one. We're the only one. Everybody else is putting up the common narrative. Hey, what is the news article of the day? We're trying to actually make change so you walk without a broken leg. We're trying to get you to understand that everything has a profit motive. Everything is about money. Everything is about economics. And if you don't understand that, then every single thing you're fighting for past that, you're going to be fighting on the wrong issues because you're compensating for your broken leg. You're pushing paper from the left to the right. You're getting in your car, you're doing the rat race. You're not making change. What we're offering is real revolutionary change. And we're the only game in town, folks. We're the only ones talking about it. And I care so much about you all that I want to shake you and make you see this for what it is. Because we can change the world. We can. But I need you. I can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. It's not me, it's us. With that, I'm Steve Grumbine, hoping you have a wonderful night and that you open your mind and get off the hamster wheel. Have a great night.